Hello, Garland Nixon here, and the founder of Telegram. I believe his name is something like Pavel Durov or whatever the hell. Yeah, Pavel Durov was nabbed by the French government today, and I think we can see what's coming. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here, and let's start. I got a lot to talk about here, but let's get started with some of the ongoing news. Russian-born Telegram founder reportedly detained in France. What we know, Pavel Durov, the Russian-born billionaire founder and CEO of the messaging app Telegram, was reportedly detained by French authorities on Saturday evening. He has French citizenship. I think he has citizenship in he has a residence in Dubai, so who knows? Maybe UAE. According to Reuters, citing French media outlets TF1 TV and BFM TV, Durov was arrested upon his arrival in his private jet at Le Bourget airport outside Paris. He was allegedly targeted by an arrest warrant as part of a preliminary police investigation. The investigation centers on Telegram's alleged lack of content moderation. French authorities claim this deficiency has potentially allowed criminal activities to flourish unchecked by the popular messaging program, which boasts over 900 million active users globally and is known for its strong encryption and commitment to user privacy. The app is extremely influential in Russia and Ukraine, as well as ranked one of the major social media platforms after Facebook, YouTube, blah, 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 blah. It's popular among secure communication channels, including activists, journalists, and dissidents in authoritarian countries. That would be the United States, right? Okay. These same attributes have drawn criticism from governments and law enforcement agencies who argue that the platform can be exploited by criminal elements. So what's going on here, okay? It's pretty easy to see what's happening. What happened to Richard Medhurst recently, right? Richard Medhurst lands at Heathrow Airport and they grab him. Same exact thing as Pavel Durov, right? They nab him, they question him for 24 hours. We don't know what's going to happen with Richard Medhurst. What is he doing? He's saying things they don't like. That's what he's doing. Let's face it. It's not about violating the law. It's not about, criminal elements. He's saying things they don't like. And why is that important right now? Because they're losing on all fronts. Because the U.S., the British, NATO, imperialists, warmongers, neocons, I don't care what you use what you call them. The bottom line is this. They're in a war in Ukraine and they're losing. I mean, they got the Kursk offensive, right? A lot of good that does. Right, a lot of good that does. Okay, so you take land and then you lose land. It's like self-defense. I once had a self-defense instructor say to me, "You're not trying to protect real estate. You're trying to protect yourself. Your first option is run, get away, flee. If somebody if somebody does, threaten you, get out of the way, move, go away. They can't hit you if you're not there, right?" And so you're never trying to in a battle. And again. Always recall that Vladimir Putin is in fact a martial artist. He has a black belt. What he knows is a fight is not about real estate. A fight is about who's left standing at the end. That's all it is. Go home. What's the idea? Go home. So in the end, the fight against Ukraine is about what? Who's left standing in the end? You want to cripple them, break it. If somebody attacks you, you want to break their fingers, break their arms, break their whatever you can, injure them, poke their eyes. They can't see you now. They can't attack you. Things like that, right? You don't want to stop them from encroaching in your turf. You want to hurt them so they can't hurt you. You want to leave them if you feel that your life is in threatened. You want to kill them so they can't kill you, right? So what's happening there? It is about a victory of attrition, destroy the troops. So they took Kursk, they took this town, they took that town. Doesn't really matter. In the end, what matters is who's left standing, right? Bottom line is this. From that perspective, the U.S. empire is losing in Ukraine and they can't possibly win because sooner or later, Russia's going to be the one left standing and the Ukraine military isn't. Bottom line, what's happening in the Middle East? There's no way that Israel can win. Why? Because Israel's got to keep fighting. What does Israel have to do? Israel will have to keep fighting for as long as it wants to stay Israel. If the mentality they have, the U.S. will be in an eternal war in the Middle East. Because guess what? The Muslim people ain't going to stop fighting ever. Ever, 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 ever. They'll never stop fighting. And they've already lost because they lost the moral war. They lost the PR war. They lost all of those things. So the U.S. empire is dying in the rubble of Gaza and on the steppes of Ukraine. And they don't want it out. And there's people like me and Richard Medhurst and Jimmy Dore and George Galloway and all kinds of people that are out here. And some of us may say things you completely abhor, don't agree with whatsoever, which is okay. That's why that's what alternative media is about. You can come to Garland's channel and you can say he's too far to the left for me. That Garland's far too far. He's some kind of revolutionary madman. But he sure hit the nail on the head on this one. So I'll watch this video. I had a friend one time, guy that I like a lot, tell me about how terrible Tucker Carlson was. And I said, in some instances, I'd agree with you. I don't watch those. I watch the ones I like. Some people right now, what we have is a situation where people don't understand that. The mainstream media, the neocons, the establishment says this: we must demonize a particular person, a channel, an individual, a group, whatever, right? And then you discount everything they say. Where alternative media is about something different. Alternative media is about, I can turn to a channel, and I do sometimes, and I can watch a video and say, yeah, it's crap. And I can come back to tomorrow and they do another video and I can say, oh man, that was outstanding, and share it with everybody. Share it with everybody. Where I hated one. You've got Emil Kosman. He does some great stuff. He does some stuff I don't like, but he does some fantastic work too. I like Emil, right? And so I watch his stuff, and if I don't like it, I don't watch it. And if I love it, I watch it. And I would expect he does the same if he even knows who the hell I am. I'm sure there are people who watch my videos sometime and say hooray, and watch them other times and say boo, it's crap. That's what true media is about. That's what alternative media gives you, right? So where are we now? Neocons can't stand that because they're losing so bad. They've got to maintain the worst things go for them on their two major fronts. The worst things go for them. I mean, Africa, things ain't going very well there either, right? I could go on about that. The Sahel region coming together, getting armed, pushing U.S. imperialism, French imperialism out. Things ain't going well for the neocon warmongers, globalists, whatever you call them. Things ain't going well for them anywhere. And they can't afford to have the littles, that would be us, having that kind of discussion, because then we won't be brainwashed, right? They can't stand that. They can't afford that. And things are going real bad. And the less knowledge that people have, the more they tend to accept this crazy, warmongering narrative. Okay, so let's go on to what happened. So the founder of Telegram, what they're basically saying is there are things on Telegram that we don't like. There's things on Telegram that we can't control. And you own Telegram. Therefore, you, sir, got to get arrested and go to jail. Right? Now, think about this. In the event that Kamala Harris wins, right? Kamala Harris is a surrogate. Clearly, if you look at Kamala Harris's history, she is a surrogate for Hillary Clinton. And Hillary Clinton is a very fascist person. She is a very assertive, very aggressive, militaristic person. And I'm going to tell you right now, if Hillary was president, I'll put it like this: all you got to do is look around at what happens to people that disagree with Hillary on a normal basis. They got, let's just say things don't go well for them. Okay. Some of them have disappeared, commit suicide, slip and fall in the bathtub. I'm just saying, if you cross Hillary Clinton, things don't always work out well for you. So it's very, as they say in the mafia, it's a dangerous world out there. Things happen, right? Okay, so here's my point. Harris is a former prosecutor, and she brags about that, and she talks about what it's like to have the power, and with the stroke of a pen, she could do this and that, right? Very, very person who's cognizant of power and her ability to act based on the authority and the power that she has. Okay, number one. Number two, if she comes to power, now I really don't think she wins personally if I had to project things, but then again, I don't trust the electoral system, so I don't know what could happen. I think if it's a fair election, I'm guessing she loses. That's based on My opinions are based on the swing states right now, the 7 swing states, and adding. I already thought she would win, she would lose in a close one, but adding the RFK Jr. factor in, here he's got what 4% or so. It depends on which polls. Let's say 3.9 to 5%. Let's give him 4%. Some say 3, some say 5. Let's give him 4% in Pennsylvania and Michigan, right? Where in both areas they're within the margin of error. And what is the margin of error? 4%, which means even if Trump doesn't get those, I think it's enough. Let's not forget, Hillary lost by what, 11,000 votes in Michigan? So what I think can very well happen if the Trump people use RFK Jr. right, and they align, and he's in the swing states and he's stumping for him and doing advertisements and things like that, I think the corner has been turned as far as Trump winning. However, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Harris wins. Former prosecutor, and very aggressive prosecutor, and not much in going by the law, right? Okay. So what's happening throughout the U.S. empire? We got Britain, who they're literally, I think over 300 and some people have been arrested and prosecuted for Facebook posts, for online posts. We'd see Germany and a lot of the U.S. what would you call them, surrogates, colonies, doing the same thing. We had a guy here that was arrested for a Twitter post, and that was convicted. And basically what it was, if I recall correctly, it was in the Northeast somewhere. What the guy did was he retweeted something that said, go out and vote Wednesday, when voting was Tuesday or something. And so they arrested him and said he was trying to do something, and and he was convicted, and I don't even know what the sentence was, but bottom line is a Twitter post, right? Okay. Now that they've gone after this Telegram guy, right? Let's look something else. Oh, darn it. Well, I'm not even going to get into that, but I'll say the TikTok ban. I'm not going to show you anything on that, but let's not forget the TikTok ban. What was the TikTok ban about? A couple of things. Number one, we were told it was about the same thing, nefarious actors on TikTok. But when you look into the TikTok ban, we found out that the two Republicans who were behind, I guess they were Republicans, or wasn't Republican. Don't hold me down. It could have been one Republican, one Democrat, but both of them previously had written op-eds and written articles about TikTok, on TikTok, people criticizing Israel, Zionism, etc. Right? And they said, oh, the TikTok is, basically inhabited by a bunch of Hamas sympathizers and Hamas or whatever, and they should be done away with. When in a couple months, TikTok ban is gone. So we know what that was about. That was about Zionism. Again, feeling threatened by information. And swoop, TikTok ban passes, and now Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Kamala Harris is using TikTok, but I guess she figures, well, I'll use it, and then as soon as I win, it's going to be, if they're going to ban it. They said it's either got to be sold to an American company or be banned, and the Chinese have said, we ain't selling it to no American company. I guess they said, to hell with it. Go ahead and ban it if it is what it is, right? That was a kind of an opening salvo. We see that they've been going after Musk. Now, don't get me wrong. I know what you're going to say. Well, Garland, you're not even on Twitter. Look, that's about business. Could I possibly be involved in a lawsuit against Musk, a massive lawsuit with multiple plaintiffs that sue X for fraud? Yeah. Could that be something that brings down theoretically X? Theoretically, yeah, but that has nothing to do with Elon Musk. It has to do with fraud. If I sue them for fraud, I got to prove that they committed fraud, right? And if they didn't commit fraud, that's fine. They can prove they didn't commit fraud. But has nothing to do with Elon Musk. It doesn't have to do with free speech or anything else. That's simply business. If you say to me, Garland, if I take your money, I can do this. And then you take my money and I say, okay, can you do that? And you say, no, I can't. Are you kidding me? But you take my money. Hey, Garland, can you give me money? I'll give you a blue check mark, and you'll be guaranteed certified account. We know who you, blah, blah, blah. All right, here's my money. Garland, we don't know who your account is now. We don't know who owns it, but thanks for the money. That's called fraud. And then a year later, you take the money out of my account for another year. That's called fraud. And I tend to think that each time you take the money out of my account is another count of fraud. It's another crime each time you do it. It's another case of fraud. So I would argue that if someone were awarding damages, that for each time you did it, a person could ask for damages. So let's see what, well, it is what it is. That has nothing to do with Elon Musk, period. That has to do with its corporate fraud, as far as I'm concerned. Either they did it or they didn't, whatever, right? So no, I'm not angry at Elon Musk. I don't hate him. That's his corporation. Let him figure it out when it all goes down. Here's my point. Oh, somebody said, are you still paying X? Yeah. Look, as of last August, they sent me an email that said, we don't know who owns your account. Don't know. And I pay them every year out of my account specifically so I can get the little blue check mark. And in order to do that, they asked me for additional info. They said, hey, Garland, before we can give you the blue check mark, we need some extra. We need your number, your name, your address, all these things. And I figured, well, I guess they really need to know who I am, huh? I gave it all to them. And they sent me an email. Congratulations. You get the blue check mark, certified account. And then a month or so later, they sent me an email that says, Garland, we don't have any idea who owns your account. We can't tell you. So have a nice day. Thanks for the money, sucker. And a year later, they just debited my account for another year for an account that they have no idea who owns. I think there's a word for that in law, don't you? It's called fraud. It's called unjust enrichment. There's lots of things you can name to that. So let a judge figure it out. But here's my point. Harris is going to go after her enemies. Right now, if she gets in right now, I mean, you can see who she is. She's Hillary. She is an avatar for Hillary Clinton, in my opinion. She's just an avatar for Hillary Clinton. I mean, I listened to her speech and it sounded, what it sounded exactly like? During the 2016 convention, they had this former Marine Corps general come out. We called him, General Mayhem. And this guy came out, and my God, he sounded like a speech from Hitler in 1941, right? That's what Harris sounded like to me. It was unbelievable. Our enemies will fear us, and we'll have the most powerful military in the world. And Lockheed Martin was like, the best equipped military in the world. Boeing was like, whoo! They're doing the Running Man. They're doing their end zone dance. We about to get paid, bro. We are about to get paid. That's what they're saying when they listen to Kamala Harris' speech. So anyway, moving forward. So it's pretty clear where she's coming from. Super duper duper neocon. So what's coming for Kamala Harris? If you look, let's look at this. Let us look at this. Here's an article. Who else is going to get it? Oh, let's see. You can always look at the New York Times if you want to find out whose butt is in a sling. Company backed by J.D. Vance gives platform for Russian propaganda. An interview of captive Americans done under duress appears on a web platform backed by J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel. There we go. In June, 2 American veterans fighting as volunteers in Ukraine, veterans, right? Yeah, American soldiers, were captured by Russian forces. They were taken to a black site where they were beaten, run into walls with bag over their hands, hooked up to a car, electrocuted. If the good thing they weren't taken by the Israelis, they'd be raped. Between meetings, they told New York Times they were interviewed on Russian media, including RT, Russia's propaganda. They stayed away from our faces. Okay, on and on and on, blah, 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 blah. But in June, its version of the captive stories appeared on Rumble, a video sharing platform that stepped in this year and began carrying RT's live feed in addition to its clips. Woo! So RT, there we go, right? Rumble has become a leading destination for conservative content by positioning itself as a platform for unfettered speech, right? Rumble received a major investment last year from a venture capital firm co-founded by J.D. Vance. Mr. Vance also took a personal Rumble stake worth between $100,000 and $250,000, right? Vance is backed by the prime platform of Mr. Vance's Senate campaign, the billionaire venture capitalist Peter Thiel, right? So here's, what are they saying here? They just arrested Pavel, whatever the hell his name is, Durov, the head of the head of Telegram, founder of Telegram. And just you know what's coming, don't you? JD Vance and Peter Thiel will be arrested. Come on. What are you going to say? Well, they wouldn't possibly go after those guys. They're going after Trump. They're going after Trump. They're going after a guy who's running for president. You think they won't go after Harris gets in? She will. I will damn guarantee you. Remember this video. If she wins, remember this video. They will arrest and they will charge Peter Thiel and JD Vance. Tell you that right now, that's going to happen. And just like TikToks, they'll turn a Rumble off and they'll say, "Look, guys, bad news. Sorry to see, sorry to see what's going to happen to you, but you have been involved in Russian propaganda, and guess what? You're a goner." Right now, let's look at something else that's been happening. Let's look at this. What kind of well, I know what you're thinking. Well, there's the First Amendment and things like that, and the blah blah blah. Okay, let's look at this. All right. U.S. investigators investigating Americans who worked with Russian state television. The FBI raided the homes of two prominent commentators on Russian state television channels as part of an effort to blunt efforts to influence November's election. And there's a picture of brother Scott Ritter, a former United Nations, blah, 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 right? He joined an event at the International Economic Forum on Russophobia. No, not Russophobia. We don't want anybody. That's evil to try to stop Russophobia. So, but if you go down, here's what's interesting. What standards do they use? I mean, come on. But Scott, was he going to Vladimir Putin and Putin dictating an article for Scott, and he writes it out there, and it's exactly, and it's okay. It's, was the FSB calling Scott and faxing him the article, and he just put his name Scott Ritter before? No. Well, let's see. What standard do you need to go after somebody for Russian propaganda? The Office of the Director of National Intelligence warned on July 29th that Russia was exploiting witting and unwitting Americans, people who had no idea they were being exploited. What the hell does that mean, right? To create and spread narratives that were, and here's the standard, narratives that were favorable to the government of President Vladimir Putin. You notice this, they don't say the government of Russia because there is no such thing as Russia. It's called Putinville, I guess. They will never say that there's a country Russia. All they'll ever say is the government of Vladimir Putin, because he's got to be demonized at all times, right? But so they're going to deal with witting and unwitting, right? Russia's exploiting witting and unwitting. So that means you. That means if you just say, well, I think Russia's right about this. Now you don't even know. You poor little unwitting dupe, right? But what is it evil thing that you're doing? Spreading narratives. What kind of narratives? What kind of narratives are these unwitting people spreading? Narratives that were favorable to the government of President Vladimir Putin. As an example, if you examine the Ukraine conflict, as I have, and you say something like this, as I have, well, wait a minute. I said, I had a guy, I used to do a show on KPFK in Los Angeles, and I had a caller, and he was like, Putin did this, Putin did that, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, wait a minute. Let me ask you this, brother. If the Russians and the Chinese were to invade, overthrow the government of Mexico and install a puppet government, and then just start building military bases, arming the hell out of the Mexicans, having meetings with the Mexicans, saying to the Mexicans, next year we go on the offensive against the Americans, as Lindsey Graham literally said to the Azov Battalion. He said in 2016, this is when next year we go on the offensive. Imagine if the Russians and the Chinese are now arming to the teeth the Mexicans and saying to the Mexicans, we're going to go on we're going on the offensive against America, and just spreading anti-American propaganda and saying, and the Russians were like, I mean, the Mexican government was like areas where Americans lived near the border were like bombing them, killing them, firing artillery and things like that. Okay, because that's what's happening in Ukraine. If the Russians did and Chinese did that in Mexico, I asked this caller, I said, would you expect the American government to respond militarily? So he wouldn't answer. He beat around the bush. And I said, I think it's conspicuous that I've asked you this question and you won't answer it. And finally he said, yeah. And I said, why? And he hung up. He had no choice. I didn't really ever ask him the question just for the answer. I asked the question answers itself. I asked him the question so that after he answered the question, I could ask him, why would you expect the Americans to do that? Because in order for him to answer that question, he would have to explain why the Russians did it. Okay. So the bottom line is, when I did that, don't you think the Russians would find that a narrative that's favorable to the government of Vladimir Putin? Don't you think the Russians, now, don't get me wrong, I came up with it for myself. It seemed obvious to me. And it seems to me that that's favorable to a healthy way of thinking, right? I mean, it's obvious. It answers, favorable to Russia. If I say I think the U.S. position on Ukraine is wrong, that's favorable to the government of Vladimir Putin, as this article says. If I say I don't agree with what's going on in what the U.S. is supporting in Gaza or the Middle East, isn't that favorable to Hamas? Literally, they said this is the article from the New York Times. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence warned on July 29th that Russia was exploiting witting and unwitting Americans to create and spread narratives that were favorable to the government of President Vladimir Putin, right? These personalities, the office said in a statement, post content on social media, write for various websites with overt and covert ties to the Russian government, and conduct other media efforts, right? So bottom line is, old Pavel Durov, in charge of Telegram, he gets arrested. He lands. Why? Because you own Telegram and you're responsible for what's on it, and that's Russian bot stuff. Right? With him, I think it was more likely probably a lot of Hezbollah related stuff. There's channels on there that say, okay, let me show you what that oppose. I mean, he doesn't say you can't oppose what happened in Israel. You can't oppose this or that. It's pretty open and unfettered there on Telegram. And I see a lot of good, interesting stuff on there from all sides, right? You can do whatever you want. A lot of Ukrainian military channels, a lot of Russian military channels. Whoever wants to have a channel can have a channel, to me, oddly enough, the way it's supposed to be. Well, guess what? They arrested him for that, right? Which is interesting. And at that point, I said, okay, well, all they're saying is you can't say things we don't want, and we're going to go after you. Now, what's going to happen if Harris wins? She's going to be, look, at that point, she got 4 years. She's got 4 years, and they know they're in a world of hurt right now, and they know our economy's on the edge of crashing. They can't have people, Michael Hudson and Richard Wolff and various people out there saying, hey, Dr. Rathika Desai, economists and different people out there on social media telling them what's going on and why. They can't afford that. And I believe that Kamala Harris will bring it to a screeching halt by saying, you know what, in the same way that we got this guy Pavel Durov, guess what? She'll send like a cease and desist letter. Or if Elon Musk is lucky, she'll send a cease and desist letter. But I don't think she will. I think what will happen with him is Elon Musk will land in wherever and he'll get arrested. And FBI will descend on his mansions and his whatever properties. And guess what? Anywhere in the West, he will not be able to escape. They will descend on his stuff. They will lock up his accounts. They will seize Twitter. They will seize X. And you mark my word. I know what people are saying. Oh, that's crazy conspiracy theory stuff. Come on, Garland. They just grabbed the head of Telegram. They just said that they were going, the FBI, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, said that they're going after witting and unwitting Americans who create and spread narratives that are favorable to the government of President Vladimir Putin. So they're saying you don't have to be working for RT or Russia or Sputnik or Press TV or whatever. You don't have to be working for them. You don't have to have anything associated with them. You can just be Joe Blow who lives in Raccoon Rape, Texas. I don't know what the hell. I just make up a song. You know what I mean? You can be from anywhere doing anything. You can be on the moon. You can be on the space station. But if you spread a narrative, as they say, that's favorable to Hamas, favorable to, from their perspective, Iran, favorable to North Korea, favorable to, what if you say I'm an anti-imperialist and a socialist? What if somebody says that? Well, just that alone, they could say, okay, well, you're now that's favorable to North Korea. What if you say I don't think we should, send more weapons to Israel? You got a right to say that under the First Amendment. However, if you look at what they're going after, the Uhuru movement, the Uhuru movement says, hey, we don't like what's going on in Ukraine. We think it's U.S. imperialism. We think the U.S. government is using Ukraine as a catspaw to go after Russia. We think that's imperialism. We're anti-imperialist. We think that's wrong. They got a right to say that. The United States is not at war with Russia. We haven't gone to war, nothing. And what did they do? They arrest the Uhuru movement. And what happened? What did they do? Did they just arrest them? No. The people that they went to their homes, 81-year-old man, a guy that was involved in the SNCC, the Students Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, back in the 1960s. The man's 80-some years old. They came to his house. They grabbed him and his wife. They threw flashbangs. They're unarmed. They're old, unarmed people, right? Yanks, this 81-year-old guy, he says there's red dots. They got guns pointed at him. He's unarmed. There is no history of violence of being armed. That was intimidation. He says, I just thought they were going to do like Fred Hampton and Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. I thought it was done. What do you need an 81-year-old freaking guy who wouldn't hurt a flea, who's not armed? What do you need to send helicopters and drones to his house, break down the doors, throw in flashbang grenades, a bunch of guys with camouflage and guns? Were they going after a terrorist group or something? No, actually, they armed the terrorist group. But no, they're going after an 81-year-old guy who raises money to build basketball courts in poor black neighborhoods, to build a fresh vegetable market in very, very poor black neighborhoods. Who literally, one of the things the Uhuru movement does is they've got this program so that when people get out of prison, they bring them in, give them a place to stay. They train them cooking and culinary skills so they can go out and get a job as a cook. But you know what else they do? They go into the black community and they say, you're being had by the Republicans. You're being had by the Democrats. They just want to subordinate you. They just want to put you under they want to force you to do what they're told. Get out from under don't be a Republican, don't be a Democrat, go another direction, right? That's one of the things they do. I think that's why they went after them. Why? Because more and more black people are leaving the Democratic Party or getting sick and tired of these two parties and looking for another option. And the Uhuru movement went into the black community and said self-sufficiency. The Democrats ain't going to do nothing for you. They're not going to they're not going to promise you even anything anymore. That's what they say. They ain't even promise you anything. If you want anything, you got to get it yourself. Go out here. Let's work together. Let's build our own community up. Let's do things on our own. The Democratic Party doesn't, and the Democratic Party doesn't want somebody in a poor black community going around doing things to help poor people, telling people they ain't doing nothing for us. Don't even ask. Let's do it ourselves. Screw them. Let's find another way. That's why they went after the Uhuru movement. If you listen to them, you'll say, oh shit. Yeah, no wonder the Democrats, they want to subordinate these people. And here's a group in the black community saying to people, nah, you gonna have to, if you want a damn thing, you have to get it yourself because these bastards are not your friends. That's why they went after them, right? Why? Because of the message they're sending. They don't have much money. Did you know this? The Uhuru movement, one of the things they did is they locked up their bank accounts. They had buildings that they were purchasing. They went in and they said, okay, the bank would say, we want you to pay the full amount right now within 2 weeks for this building, or we're going to consider the loan in default. They went after them economically using sanctions. They attacked the Uhuru movement. Poor people working in poor neighborhoods to help poor people to get out from under the thumb of the two-party duopoly. That's why they went after him, right? Petro Pavel, Pavel Dura, why do you think they arrested this guy? See, on one end of the spectrum, right, because of the messaging that the Uhuru movement was doing, these are people that don't have much, that are working in the poor communities. They don't like the message. They went after them. As I said, what do you need? Flashbang grenades, helicopters, and a bunch of guys with fully automatic weapons to go arrest an 80-some-year-old guy who's completely unarmed, who has no record of violence and no guns or nothing. What do you need that for? That was intimidation. And literally, Literally in the charging document, it has that he gave a speech. And in the speech, he says the United States, the imperialists, are using Ukraine. It's a war on Russia by U.S. imperialism, and Russia has a right to defend itself and things of that. Oh, no, don't forget, no, Israel has a right to defend itself. Russia doesn't. So he said that kind of stuff. And because that's the kind of stuff they've been saying all along. And what did they do? Oh, well, wait a minute. That's this article says, that's a narrative that could be favorable to the government of Vladimir Putin. They went in and arrested everybody, locked up their bank accounts, did everything they can to screw them. And they want to give an 80 some year old man 15 to 20 years in jail, which is a life sentence, just for saying, I agree with the Russians and we should support what's happening against the U.S. empire. Which is protected speech. They even admit that it's protected speech. They say, sure, it's protected speech, but you're doing it on behalf of the Russians. It's a narrative that's favorable to the government of Vladimir Putin. We can't have that, can we? Now, think about what that means. And now this guy that runs Telegram, he's getting nabbed. Richard Medhurst is getting nabbed one by one. They're grabbing them. That means that before the election, they're afraid to go too far. But if you read this article, they're saying, well, they're going to interfere in the election. And this is about interfering in the election. So it's a setup so that afterwards, guess what happens? Let's say Kamala Harris wins. And let's say Donald Trump and others feel that they were robbed, right? Which they have a right to feel. They have a right. They're like, oh, Donald Trump's an election denier. You have a right. In a democracy, which this isn't a democracy, but they pretend it is, one of the foundational things that you have a right to do is to challenge an election. If you win, in a lot of states, if election is under a certain percentage of victory, like let's say some states, they'll say, if you win by less than 1%, it triggers an automatic recount, right? Literally, in some jurisdictions, winning by under a certain amount triggers an automatic recount. So what do? Do we say that state now is working for the Russians? That state is election deniers? No. That's a good idea to me. So now let's say Trump loses and Trump and Vance and to come out and say, we've been had. I think they stole it and we want to look into it. They got a right to do that, whether they're right, wrong, or indifferent. He has a right to go to court. They have a right to present their evidence, right? This is a setup now to say, if what happens to the various channels? What happens to Jimmy Dore, Garland Nixon, whoever? And then afterwards, the election, we look at it and we say, yeah, it's kind of weird that this group won during, well, let's say Trump won, and I didn't think it was fair. Anybody, well, they wouldn't touch it then. They'd say, oh, yeah, well, yeah, it wasn't. It was robbed. Kamala Harris was stolen. But you get my point. My point being that the setup is there. So that after election, if Harris wins, if people feel as though there was some miscreant activity, shall we say, and which they got a right to. There's never been an election where somebody didn't feel like they were stolen. Reagan, I guarantee you, when Reagan won 48 states, there were people that were like, he stole some of them. Let me give you an example. The polls, the U.S. sponsored polls in Russia said that Vladimir Putin had 86% approval rating. He won 87% of the vote. That doesn't surprise me because I study Russia and I know how popular he is, right? But he won 87% of the vote. And an American said he stole it. He stole it. Look at all the chicanery and tomfoolery he was involved in. He did all that to get an extra 1%. Your own damn poll said he had 86%. He get 87%. Now you say he stole it. What about Venezuela, a place that I've been? Right? Venezuela, Maduro, he stole it. He got 51% of the vote, so he stole it. Well, wait a minute. If he stole it, why wouldn't he get like 78% of the vote? He stole 1%. He won. The man got over 50% and he won. And knowing what I know about Venezuela, having interviewed people and understanding the dynamics there, I predicted he was going to win. And our polls said he was going to win. All the polls said he was going to win. And what does the U.S. say? He didn't win. He stole it. Right? So now what happens? Is anybody saying we've got to go get the U.S. is doing election interference, blah, blah, blah? No, it is the U.S. empire says we want to put somebody in because let's face it, Venezuela's got a hell of a lot of oil and that oil ain't going to steal itself, for God's sake. We got to go and steal it ourselves. We got to do what we got to do. We got to do some work to steal that oil. It ain't just handed to us on a silver platter, right? Okay, so as we continue, what we find is this, that the setup is ready so that after the election, they can shut this thing down once and for all. they're not happy. How you going to lose two wars and have people like Jimmy Dore and Garland Nixon and various and sundry other people, Kim Iverson, on, Richard Medhurst running around saying, you guys are losing two wars. You're wrong, and you're doing things you shouldn't do. So the opening salvo, I think, well, there's been a lot of opening salvos. We can always go back to what's his name, Alex, what's his name, the InfoWars guy. When they nabbed him, and we said, ooh, that's the camel's nose under the tent, as they say in law, right? Sooner or later, the rest of that camel's coming under the tent. And now that they said they were going to ban TikTok. They don't have to do anything with Facebook because, let's face it, everybody, and in case you didn't know, the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensics Lab, Research Lab, in other words, NATO, is running Facebook, and all you got to do is be on Facebook for 5 minutes. Anybody who's Facebook will know, or Facebook knows this, Facebook is involved in massive election interference. If you go through Facebook, here's what you'll constantly see. It's unbelievable. I see these, I'll have a new Facebook friend, right? I'll see something pop up on my timeline, and it's a name that I've never heard or seen before in my life. And it is pro-Kamala, anti-Trump stuff, right? And I'm like, I did. And then I'll check and I'll go and it'll say friends. How the hell is that person a friend? I've never heard of them before. I've never heard their name before. I've never seen them. And I'll go and I'll look at their feed, their timeline, and there's crap on there. There's either one of two things. There's like absolutely garbage, like posts, like everybody should love each other. The kind of posts that nobody puts up, right? These really mindless prattle kind of posts. There'll be those, and then they'll be sprinkled in with either, anti-Trump or pro-Kamala stuff, right? And so Facebook right now is involved in massive election interference. The Atlantic Council's in there stumping for Kamala. So all we get is pro-Kamala. And then I look and it's like a friend. And I'm like, how can this person be my Facebook friend when I've never heard of them before in my life? And I didn't ask them for a friend request, send them a friend request. They've never sent me one, and I'll go block it, and 10 more will pop up the next day. So you got Facebook, which is basically NATO's social media outfit, right? Well, they want them all to be like that. TikTok wouldn't give in, so that's got to go. And now Telegram, they're unhappy with that. Telegram's doing things they want. So what do? They grab the guy and they give him the Uhuru 3 treatment. They lock him, Pavel Durov, whatever. They grab him. If Kamala gets in, at that point, they got nothing to lose. At that point, they're like, ha, 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 we got it. But you know what? Trump's going to say, I was robbed. He has a right to. Whether he was or not, he has a right to. He's got a right to sue. He's got a right to present his evidence in court, do all that stuff if he loses. I don't think he's going to lose, but I don't know what the system will do, right? I don't see how the system can possibly let him win. But at any rate, so after this, they can't afford people snooping around. And Elon Musk, notwithstanding the fraud that X has been involved in regarding me and others. They've done the exact same thing to others. It's fraud. I mean, it's obvious. Their position is give me some money so I can give you a blue check mark. And if you say, hey, something's going on with my account, I need you to let me back in my account, they're going to say, well, we ain't got no way of doing that. We don't know who the hell owns this account. And I mean, how many times can you do that? You can't sell a product if you don't have the product. You can't say, Garland, give me $100 and I will fix your transmission. Here's $100. You're going to fix my transmission? Hell no, I don't know how to fix transmissions. What are you, crazy? That's fraud. That's unjust enrichment. In any court of the land, you're never going to win that one. It's bad news for X. That's no way. You can't get somebody thrown out and say they don't have standing. If you took their money, they automatically have standing. And if you promise them something and you don't do it, that's a prima facie case of fraud. I'm sorry. It's just, this is not a complicated case that I'm dealing with. Not complicated at all. That being said, that has nothing to do. Look, if you ask me, should they shut down X? I'd say no. They shouldn't allow them to fraudulently enrich themselves with that has to be dealt with. But I would say no. In fact, it should be open, and everybody should be able to do whatever they want to do on X. On all of them. As soon as Kamala wins, she ain't gonna feel that way. And the die has been cast today when Petro or when Pavel Durov's plane landed and he got out and they grabbed his butt and said, "You're going in," because people are posting stuff. Think about this. People are posting stuff on your platform and we don't like it. So you got to get locked up. You think there's anybody posted anything on X that they don't like? And you don't think Elon Musk ain't rubbing it in their faces? You've already got the articles in the New York Times that says Peter Thiel and JD Vance, they got Rumble, and Rumble's platforming RT and putting things that we think are Peter Thiel and JD Vance are going to get the Pavel Durov. They will get locked up, and their bank accounts are going to get locked up. They're going to get frozen. They're going to get seized. They're going to get the full Monty. They're going to go after. I'm guarantee you that. I'll bet you. What the old saying? A dollar against a donut, right? I'm telling you. When Harris gets in, they're going to make their move because things are going real bad. They're going to make their move, and they're going to do it quick and early. As soon as she gets in, they ain't going to wait. Well, if she gets in January, February, March latest, you're going to see the cuffs on old Elon Musk, on JD Vance. As I said, Donald Trump, he was former president, and they used blatantly obvious. I mean, it could not be any clearer that they were going after Trump. I mean, literally, illegally. That it was a lawfare. Literally, this guy Alvin Bragg ran for office and said, "Hey, if you elect me, I'll get Trump." They elected him, and he charged Trump with the most spurious charges you could ever imagine. But it was in Manhattan, and everybody there hated Trump. And guess what, Elon Musk? Bad news. They'll charge you in Manhattan or downtown DC. They will charge you in a place where you can't possibly win. Same with JD Vance. Same with Peter Thiel. That's the game now. They're going to grab you. They're going to lock you up, and the charges will be filed in the blue, no matter who area. They're probably downtown San Francisco. Think about this, right? X or whatever. The rest of some of these guys, they got offices in San Francisco. So what are they going to do? They'll charge you in downtown San Francisco. What the hell's you? Where's Kamala Harris from anyway? Oh, that's right. She's from the San Francisco area, right or wrong. So what are they going to do? They'll charge you in Frisco, and they will put a bunch of blue, no matter who. You'll come in there. The people have blue hair. There'll be, it'll look like the latest Hollywood superhero movie, right? There'll be a trans person, a black person, a gay, a white person. There'll be a Latino, a Muslim. You know what I mean? Won't be a Muslim, but you know what I mean. They'll put this Benetton advertising looking jury there, and as soon as Elon Musk and Thiel and Vance look at that jury, they'll be like, "Uh-oh, we're about to get trumped." They're gonna be. That's what you call. I think that's what you should call it. Where they charged Trump with, basically mopery on the high seas, the most dubious charges they could imagine. And then they brought it to court in a place where they knew the people there, like Donald Trump. They go to like a place where Donald Trump literally, got one half of 1% of the vote, like Manhattan. And then that's where they get your jury pool from. That's a fair trial. That's the game. Trump couldn't have possibly won in Manhattan, really. Okay. That would be like Kamala Harris being in like a tiny town in rural Mississippi, where it's like everybody has voted Republican for generations. She couldn't win, right or wrong. That wouldn't be a fair trial. It wouldn't. If Kamala Harris were charged with something, I would want her to get a fair trial, a trial of her peers, right? So bottom line is, Musk, you can look forward to Manhattan, DC, maybe Northern Virginia, where all the people work for the CIA, a bunch of guys there. What do we have on the jury pool? Well, we've got a former CIA agent, a current CIA agent, and a guy who's applied for the CIA agent, along with several people who work for NSA and blah, blah, blah. And so you're going to end up with like guaranteed, 12, intelligence operatives in Northern Virginia or whatever in DC. Elon Musk, you better enjoy your freedom while you can, because it will be fleeting. If Kamala Harris wins, it will be fleeting. It will be gone. Garland Nixon suing you will be the least of your problems. And I will add this: JD Vance, Peter Thiel, they've already set the table. There is already look at this. Look at this. You think they're going to do it? Look at this article. You think they're coming after you, JD Vance and Peter Thiel? Looky here, looky here, looky here. Let's look at this. Company backed by JD Vance gives platform for Russian propaganda. An interview of captive Americans done under arrest appears on a web platform backed by JD Vance. Look at that. And Peter Thiel. An interview of captive Americans done under arrest appeals on a web platform backed by JD Vance and Peter Thiel. Let me tell you, JD Vance and Peter Thiel, if Kamala Harris wins, I will guarantee you they're coming for you. Elon Musk, I will guarantee you in the same way. Look at this before I go, gangy. Look at this right here. Look at this right here. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Guess what? Now the doggone it. My thing's just spinning. Yeah. Oh, well. Well, it won't let me share the screen. So whatever the hell it is. Oh, wait a minute. There it is. Look at this. Look at this. Russian-born Telegram founder reportedly detained in France. What we know, and there he is. And when you go down, this investigation centers on Telegram's lack of content moderation. Ooh, you're not content moderating. They got the guy, the billionaire who owns Telegram. I think that trail of breadcrumbs next leads us straight to Elon Musk and JD Vance and Peter Thiel. No question about it. Harris wins, those guys all go to jail. And here's the thing: if I file a lawsuit against X, if I'll say that if and if the sun comes up tomorrow, you don't think they'll support it? You don't think they'll be like, well, this guy's filed a lawsuit against Twitter. Perhaps we should award him $20 billion. Perhaps we should award him so much that it puts the company out of it. You don't think you don't think that could be one of their ploys? Again, that ain't my problem. If you don't want to get sued by me, don't commit fraud and take my money and then tell me you can't provide that service that I asked for. That's not my issue. I mean, hey, who knows? Maybe they'll go to court and prove that they don't have to provide the service that I paid for. I don't know. That doesn't come before me. But you don't think that the Harris people would use that to try to put them out of business? It wouldn't shock me if they did. Anyway, thanks a lot, everybody. Let me look and see. Let me see something here. I will now check to see if I got any super chats or anything like that. Pardon me for taking the time. Okay. So if there's any super chats, I don't see any, but that's okay. That's good and fine. If there are any, I will answer them because somebody may disagree with me. No, Garland, they'll never go after Musk and Thiel. Okay. Anas Belakahab. Tech bros want to cannibalize the old banking families of Europe. They timed this attack well. See their ties to crypto and anger at EU bureaucracy. Thank you. Sorry, I can't pronounce your handle. All right. Let's look on Rockfin. Okay, we got some people in Rockfin. Thank you, David Boteller. Thank you, username. It says pre-proud Pavel Durov. Pedal Laval says Garland Nixon received. Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. And last but not least, we're going to see if anybody on Rumble did some Rumble rants. Because oftentimes, let's new. All right. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. Certainly appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Don't forget, all the stuff scrolling across the bottom, Patreon, buy me a coffee, PayPal, whatever the case may be. If you can help the channel, I certainly would support, but would appreciate it. If you can't, just use the money for your family. And everybody, this is critical. Everybody, share this on all your social media platforms. Thanks a lot. I'm sure Elon Musk won't watch it because, let's face it, it has Carla Nixon on there, and he's going to be like, "Hey, I don't know who that guy is. Thanks for the money, sucker." No, all jokes aside, share this on all your social media platforms. Thanks. I'm out. And everybody do this. Hey, look, everybody who shares it, share at Elon Musk. Also, share it. There's because his picture's on the thumbnail. So, peace. I'm out.